What's up, everyone? If you guys haven't followed the news recently, it looks like Apple's kind of in a weird spot. We've seen with their stock price, it went down quite a bit. I'm pretty sure this is all temporary, but I think it should be a wake-up call for Apple as a whole entire company. Another thing that recently came out is that Tim Cook, who's a CEO of Apple right now, he recently said that they're going to stop reporting the sales numbers of their iPhones. So the iPhone 10, the XS Max, the XRs, whichever iPhones they still sell at the Apple Store, they're going to stop reporting those numbers. Before they would do it, but it looks like sales for those phones have actually declined. I think Apple really hyped up the iPhone XR. They thought it was going to sell a lot. A lot of other people thought it was going to sell a lot too, me included, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that. But there's one thing that I think could save Apple right now. They're definitely not going to go bankrupt. They're not going to lose their company, but it looks like they're kind of in a weird spot because it looks like they're making money off different things, and their main breadwinner, which was the iPhone for a while, looks like it's kind of, phasing out. It's not phasing out or anything, but it just doesn't seem like people are updating as much or upgrading. Now, I kind of have an assumption, okay, and it all basically has to do with the potentially releasing iPhone SE 2 that's going to be released next year, hopefully. I've done a lot of videos about it. I even did videos earlier this year before WWDC. I thought it was going to be released, but it ended up not being released, but it kind of makes sense for Apple to do it next year. But right now we're in a trend, okay? We're in a trend of smartphones becoming bigger and bigger. It's not just Apple, it's just phones in general. Samsung, LG, Huawei, Xiaomi, whoever these people are, these companies, they're all following this trend of making phones bigger and bigger, and not many smartphone manufacturers are actually making smaller phones anymore, or even like smaller good phones. I know Sony has done it for a bit. I know Apple already did it with the original SE, and I know some other phone manufacturers have done smaller versions of their phones too, but it seems like all phones nowadays are either like 5.5 inches or more, and it seems like that's kind of the trend we're going, especially with bezel-less route. And I feel like these phone manufacturers, especially Apple, we're going to focus on Apple right now, they're leaving out a huge market that, wants a smaller phone. Me personally, I like a bigger phone, but I do see a lot of comments, a lot of Reddit posts, a lot of people in general complaining that phones are way too big. Some people even think the iPhone 10 is too big, or even like an iPhone 8, and I kind of could see that, why that's the case. I personally think they're good size, but for a lot of people, I just because I don't like it or I don't have a problem with it or whatever, doesn't mean other people don't have a problem with it. Now, recently we saw the iPhone XS, XR, and XS Max, okay? The XS and XS Max or whatever, I don't want to talk about them right now, but the iPhone XR was the most polarizing one of this year, okay? It was supposed to be the budget iPhone. Now, I call it a budget iPhone. I don't call it a budget priced iPhone. I don't think that price point was a budget at all. $750, that's like really expensive. And the phone was like restricted in features that even like a $699 the iPhone 8 Plus had. So it was really weird. It was like an iPhone Lite in my opinion, just didn't have all the features of even a phone that's cheaper than it, which makes absolutely no sense. So that was a budget iPhone. And like I said, looking at the stock price, we see that ever since the September event, we really haven't seen that much of an increase. And now, right now as me making this video, the price point of the stock has actually gone down a lot. At this point, Apple actually lost its $1 trillion valuation, which is not good. It's kind of sad, but it's kind of funny too, because like they hit that humongous milestone and they kind of like dip down. It's like when you hit like 10 million subscribers and then like you make a video like, oh, we hit 10 million subscribers, and then like you end up losing a ton of subscribers and you go back to like 9.8 or something. That's kind of embarrassing, but I would say most likely, it's not a secret, it's probably due to the iPhone sales. iPhones are not selling as much as they used to just because there's really not that many improvements. And at this point, I think phones are becoming stagnant, not only in terms of software, but in terms of hardware as well, And that's why I think an iPhone SE 2 could come out and really shake up the market even more, Like I said, phones are becoming bigger and bigger. I think people want smaller phones a little bit. At least like some people out there want a smaller phone. I feel like more people want a smaller iPhone XR than a bigger iPhone XR, the same size it is. So the original iPhone SE was a success in my opinion. I called it one of the most important iPhones ever. I still think it is. And it's not even only because of the price, and it's not because it was the fastest or whatever, but it's because all those things. The price point was competitive. It was a very fast, capable phone at the time, and it's still pretty fast. The battery life was pretty good. It had 4K video resolution to shoot with and all these different things. So it was an all around very good package, and it wasn't really restricted in anything besides the size. The size was another pro depending on who you are, and that's why it's sold and that's why people like it so much. And the fact that they were to do that all in a smaller body at a time where phones were still continuing to be bigger and bigger, it really speaks out at, what Apple was doing at that time in their frame of mind, and now what they're doing. It's just totally shifted. And because of that, I think people loved it, all those things. And it didn't sell the most, but it was a very good addition into the Apple lineup of what they had. But then when the iPhone XR came out, they stopped making it. They stopped making the 6S and the 6S Plus. I can understand those, but I feel like they should have still put the iPhone SE in their Apple store, which, I don't even think the iPhone XR is a iPhone SE replacement. I think the iPhone XR is a completely different phone. Like just because it's priced lower, which it even isn't, but since it's priced lower than the newer iPhones of this year, doesn't mean it's a replacement to a smaller phone. The iPhone XR is even bigger than the iPhone X, which makes absolutely no sense. And all those people who wanted a smaller iPhone now either have to go with an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8. And like I said earlier, for some people that's still like pretty big. I personally think it's not that big, but some of you guys might think so. And here's what I think, okay? If Apple makes an iPhone SE2 in the same way that my renders look like right now, which you're seeing on the screen, they will not only be helping out a lot of people for getting a smaller phone, but they'll also make a ton of money as well. They can take out the headphone jack, they can take out whatever, but if they add like a notch design a little bit, even if they don't even do this, if they make it look like the iPhone SE but update the internals with the home button and everything, I feel like that would still sell a lot. But I feel like the trend that Apple's going now, they're probably going to make it notchless if they do it. I'm not even saying it they will or they won't, but I'm saying that ultimately it could probably help out Apple. They really left out a huge niche market of just pretty much ignorance on their part because they wanted to make this bigger phone and they put all this effort and energy in it, and it ended up not even working out that well because the iPhone XR apparently, from yesterday's video I made about the iPhone XR having a different problem, they stopped making as many iPhone XRs now. So before I think they had like 60 assembly lines, now they cut down 15. And now they're making 100,000 less iPhone XRs in a day. And it's mostly because of the demand. There's not that many people who want iPhone XRs right now. And they kind of overestimated it. And that's kind of why the stock price, I think, is going down too. But another thing is that they also updated and increased the amount of iPhone 8 and 8 Pluses going out. So they're kind of making money still. They're making a lot of money. But it's just kind of funny that they hyped up this phone so much and they kind of see now like, okay, it probably wasn't the best decision. And now they're increasing the rate they're making the older iPhones because more people are buying those than the XR. So I kind of agree with them. I think the 8 Plus is definitely a better phone than the iPhone XR. And like I said, the fact that the iPhone XR, which is $750, lacks features from the iPhone 8 Plus that is $699 makes absolutely no sense to me. Apple should have never done that. They should have put in Force Touch. They should have put in a better screen and just went from there. So it's kind of weird that they did that. Now, more specifically, going back with the iPhone SE2, I really think if they make it look like this, okay, the notch, if they add it in, if they don't, whatever, okay, Face ID would be perfect. The screen will probably be around 5 inches if they take this approach, and it's most likely going to be an IPS screen. I'm not expecting AMOLED. I'm not expecting inbuilt fingerprint sensor. I'm not expecting the world and back. If they keep the same camera sensor, they should probably increase the front camera one. But ultimately, if they even take the same internals of the iPhone XR, they could have a hit, dude. I think they could make a ton of money off this. And it would help us consumers out too, because I would love to see an iPhone SE2 that looks something like my renders and have a lot of people out there who are satisfied with the smaller phone, because like I said, the iPhone X, the iPhone 8, they're all the smallest iPhones, and for a lot of people it's still pretty big, and sometimes people just want a smaller phone to fit in their pocket. And I think especially when I compare it to the iPhone 5s body, I think the iPhone SE2 could look amazing. And again, I'm gonna say this, Apple 100% is probably not gonna go out of business, okay? They're still going to stay there, but I think if they stopped leaving out a huge part of the market, they could easily help everyone out, and they can make a ton of money off it too. It's not like we're the only ones benefiting off this, as other people too. And funny enough, actually, I posted a photo of one of my renders that I made earlier about the iPhone SE2, what I think it's going to look like, and I posted on my Instagram, so make sure you guys follow me there. But that photo, like, obviously it's a Photoshop, it doesn't exist. I think I did a pretty good job though, and that ended up getting like a couple hundred likes and a ton of comments, and people were like, oh my god, I want to see it, this would be the greatest thing ever, this and that. Some people I think on my Twitter thought it was real, so that's kind of funny. They're like, how did you get that, this and that? But I'm like, no, this is Photoshop. So I'll definitely say that the iPhone SE2 does have a market. People are still buying iPhone SEs. It's just the fact that Apple stopped selling those was so weird. I don't know why they did that. But kind of wrapping it up, like I said, Apple's not going to go out of business or anything like that, but they're kind of leaving a lot of money on the table, and I feel like if they eventually made this phone, a lot of people will be happy. And one more thing, I don't think the iPhone XR was a failure. The phone itself is okay, I don't really think it's like above and beyond anything, but the problem comes with the price. I think $750 for the iPhone XR was a little bit too much. They should have priced that at like $699, the price of the iPhone 8 Plus, and lowered the iPhone 8 Plus price down a little bit. That would have been way more competitive. $750 I think is way too much for that phone. Now, one more advice for Apple, if anybody from Apple's listening, if the iPhone SE2 comes out, okay, if you guys make it, I would recommend pricing it between $500 and $600. Cheaper than $500 would be even better for consumers. I would love paying less for a phone, but the max max I would be willing to pay for an iPhone SE2 would probably be like $599. Honestly, I think that's a pretty decent price. That's still expensive, like that's still a very expensive price, but I would honestly be willing to pay that for a phone that has Face ID, is bezel-less, looks very good, is built like an iPhone SE, front no home button, and with many years of support. I mean, I'd be willing to pay that, and that's competitive pricing. I would not be willing to pay $750 for an iPhone XR, but I'd be willing to pay $599 or $600, whatever $1 range you want to go up or down with, for an iPhone SE2. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it at. I think the iPhone SE2 could make Apple a lot of money and could save Apple from this rut that they're in now, just like the stereotype of making incremental improvements and just trying to suck money out of all the consumers instead of making valuable products. And that's where I'm going to leave it at, guys. If you have any questions or anything like that, if you agree with me or disagree with me, leave it down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, that is also linked down below. I do a lot more iOS comparisons and stuff. I haven't posted a video on there in a minute, but I gotta do it. But I'd really appreciate if you guys could check that out too. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.